Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. This week's episode, Who Won 2009? What a year.
What a year for horror.
What a year for...
It's a strange year for horror. Stranger than I remember.
The only thing I remember in 2009 was I graduated high school that year, and I got an iPod Nano with a screen on it, and I watched The Dark Knight the way Christopher Nolan wanted everyone to see it on a 2-inch iPod or whatever it was called.
Oh, that was already happening. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still a complaint today. That's a complaint with legs.
Yeah, no, it's... It wasn't good. I just watched the scene where he almost ran over the Joker and like the Bat motorbike or whatever the hell they call it, and then I was like,
when the truck flips,
yeah.
You watched that?
Yeah, I watched like the
of
biggest
all scenes.
Yeah, like the second biggest set piece I watched in my English teacher's class. So
well, in terms of the horror variety, we're gonna pick basically gold, silver, bronze of who won horror and decide an ultimate winner. But when I was assessing it, I was like, I can't even talk about the whole year without giving one of mine straight away, like one of my picks straight away. Because if I try to talk about the year, I'm going to have to point to a couple things that I'm about to talk about. So I can't do that. All I can tell you is that 2009 to me was a year that seemed to have a whole bunch of movies that I thought were 8 or 10 or 2011. Like, so many movies are in this year for some reason that I remember.
No, there's a lot. There was even I had to do some research of like what were the non-horror movies, because sometimes like like we did when we did the 88 episode, like I was like horror movies in 1988, and then like Beetlejuice was never on there until I did regular movies, and I was like, what else is it?
You're like, you cast your net. Like,
what else
am
is
I
Big
missing?
Brother hiding from me, dude?
And what'd you find?
Well, I'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you later.
Tell me.
No, well, okay. Well,
is it your bronze? Because we can just do it.
So we have bronze, silver, and gold, and then you and I, this episode just happened to have a subcategory of things,
right. So
plastic
here, right, exactly.
level.
So let me right. Plastic. I love that. We don't tell each other what our choices are.
No,
so we're gonna surprise each other. We do it when we can, but also if we're gonna pull a curveball on each other, we usually don't tell each other. For some reason, we like to do it surprise. Right? I don't know why. So sometimes it doesn't work out that great, but this time is going to be amazing, right? So I pulled a curveball, and you told me you pulled the same curveball right before the episode. I'm like, what the hell? We were totally in sync.
Do you want to start with curveballs?
Let's do it. Tell me your curveball.
So the thing that pissed me off the most was
the loser of horror in 2009.
Well, the loser was me.
Oh, damn.
Okay.
That took a hard turn.
But, surprise.
Just like I was saying, it sometimes this doesn't work out. Go ahead.
What I mean by that was District 9 came out that year, which I love that movie.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm not like the biggest sci-fi nerd, like William Shatner went to space yesterday, and everyone's like, Captain Kirk went to space, and then I watched the video, and he's just in space going, oh, wow. Like, he just keeps like, he just keeps saying like, oh, wow, and like talking about how amazing he is. And the top comment was, he sounds like he hasn't gotten a piece since 1989. So
pretty good Shatner.
I want to like sci-fi.
Sure.
Like, I really want to like sci-fi more than I do. Like, I like Star Wars and all that shit, but like District 9 was like the first sci-fi movie where like, because the problem is buying the world and getting into the world, because sci-fi is so heavy on like if you dig like that atmosphere, that environment. District 9 was great. Like, I loved
it's so weird. Knowing you, I would have picked District 9 as a surefire thing you would love.
Yeah,
just working backwards. Yeah, totally. Okay,
but I love the movie. I love the VFX, and I think what's his name, like Neil Blocken,
sure.
I can never pronounce. Yeah, he's got that cool. I always feel like on the like Hollow Weekly Facebook page or on like the group, they're always like an article of like his next film's coming out, and it always has like crazy cool monsters and VFX.
Right.
In it. The thing that pissed me off the most was at the end of District 9 when the alien goes and he's like, I'll be back in like 10 years, or he gives him like a super long date. I remember seeing it with my friend Cody and being like, so do you think like they'll have a movie out in like 10 years? And that 10 years went by like 5 years ago. Like it's been way too long.
Yeah, that I know that feeling sucks, because I thought it was going to happen to me, because Twin Peaks explicitly said, "We'll be back. See you in 25 years." I mean, it's literally one of the last things the show itself ever told you.
Yeah.
Was see you again in 25 years. And then 25 years came around and nothing happened. And David Lynch was just, doing wood carvings. And I was like, God damn it. But then all of a sudden it came to the 26th year. And I was like, all right, count it.
Yeah.
So I can imagine 5 years on how aggravated you must
Yeah, because it was a great movie. Like, I really liked it. I liked how it had that, mockumentary kind of style, and then like it switches over to action. Like it's like kind of like two different genres mixed in with sci-fi, like all on top of it. So the fact that I got blueballed into thinking like,
and you loved Cloverfield, like you like kind of
Anytime there's like monsters and like a slightly shaky camera, I'm like, yeah. You could say I'm a big fan of motion blur. It's kind of my jam. I was the loser, hoping that there would be some sort of follow-up. I think he did like Chappie, or he did some other movies, and he's got some other stuff going on there too. He seems like a pretty cool dude.
That's the problem is District 9 became less remarkable when everyone started carving out their own unique niches of like basically sci-fi horror or that kind of whatever that genre feels like, right? Was a lot rarer then than it is now. So there's a lot less demand for it now because people are getting 5 or 6 movies like that.
It's also got a little bit of body horror in it too.
It does, but that's why like Event Horizon was so remarkable. It was the only thing like it around it for a while. Right?
I don't know what would be like the District 9 of the 20s.
Oh God, I don't know.
Or the 2010s.
I thought you meant 1920s. I was going to tell you Metropolis.
Ayo. That could work.
You're going to go backwards on you.
I don't know. I don't think there's anything else quite like it.
Right. No, there's not. It's just that unique niche demand seems to get filled by... So Jupiter's Ascending.
I guess Dune's coming out this month. So that
exactly.
Would be
We're getting a lot of these like weirdo, off-angle, Blade Runner-esque kind of things.
Yeah, Blade Runner didn't do that.
So, all right. I can't do my curveball without telling you the bronze. So I'm just going to go into the bronze winner. So my bronze, I'm giving the bronze. This is the only idea one. The other ones are people or movies or shows or whatever. But I'm going to give this one to Double Wins. Double Wins were the winner.
Double Wins?
We're the bronze winner of horror.
That sounds like a hotel in a horror movie. The Double Wins Hotel. Hotel and resort.
I'm picturing a typewriter where it's all working to play. So, by double win, what I mean is when you went to go see one of the great, and there were a lot of really good horror movies in 2009. You went to see a movie in a theater expecting one thing, and almost every time you went, you got something else great too.
Yeah,
right? I'll give you an example. You would have gone to go see Dead Snow to see like a zombie movie, but you would have found out that you were actually in an immersive video game for like 90 minutes. Like Dead Snow is a straight up video game. I rewatched it the other day and I'm like, wow, this is so ahead of its time because it's literally like Doom in the snow, like the way it's filmed with great performances, which you don't usually get.
And lots of blood.
And just like a great concept of kind of thing. If you went to see Splice, you went to see a horror movie and you got some great effects on a really low budget. $2.5 million for the effects that were in there is amazing. Like
I would have $2.5 million. That's it.
That's all the budget that movie had. But you went to go see Splice for some horror, some science horror, mad scientist horror, body horror, whatever. What you got was great parenting advice, right? This movie was also explaining to you all the things not to do if you're ever kind of a parent in any way whatsoever. They made every bad decision you could make from a parent. And the child took out its revenge in a truly evil set of actions that are just... So it turned out this movie was French-Canadian and then released in America the year later. So they're a little more extreme than we are. They're a little they throw some punches we don't
put gravy
throw.
on fries.
They put gravy on fries, right? But there's some turns of events in this movie that are really evil. So you don't expect that from a movie starring the great Adrian Brody, which I keep for our podcast identifying horror movies with Adrian Brody in them. I don't know why, because it's weird. He was in The Jacket, which is I thought was one of the best movies.
He's in like all the Wes Anderson movies and like
right, exactly.
Pianist.
He's a fucking pianist, but he's also in Predators. I mean, this guy is pretty.
He got jacked for that too.
Which
is weird because
that is always weird.
That dude looks like he constantly weighs 80 pounds.
Yeah, but it's also weird to think because then I just picture him like breaking the piano and the pianist when he tries to play it, like going back there like King Kong style, like
I ain't here to tickle ivories,
splintering pianos everywhere. But almost so when you went to go see Last House on the Left, you thought you were going to see what you hoped was a pretty good, remake or whatever. Mm-hmm. But what you got was one of the great edibles scenes, as I call them, in unexpected edible scenes in horror. If you were just watching that movie and you'd taken an edible of a certain kind and then you were just going along with the movie, right around when you get to the kitchen scene at the end, your mind would have been blown, right? So this movie was giving you unexpected wins by kind of sabotaging you with thinking it was not as brutal as the previous movie, but saving it all up for kind of like one hilarious like gonzo moment. Just good stuff. So I felt like every movie that I was finding here in 2009 was good at two things simultaneously.
Oh, okay.
Right? So like Zombieland was good at actually keeping a little bit of the fright in comedy, right?
Yeah.
Matter of fact, this was a good year for horror comedies in general, right? But whether you're getting horror comedy, whether you're getting horror and good advice as a parent, whether you're getting horror and video game style at the same time, these movies were trying multiple things at the same time. You went to see Friday the 13th, and you thought you were getting a remake of your childhood classic, but you were getting Wolf Creek 2, and you didn't know it. Right, surprise! As we said at the beginning.
And Jason sponsored by Nikes. Down those tunnels,
just slash it. So right, so yeah, exactly. So there was always a little bit element of the unexpected where you didn't think you were going to get it. You were watching Splice thinking that you were getting a ripoff of Species, and it was just going to be like a fun roller coaster ride like Species was. And by the time you're done with Splice, you needed a therapist. This I like the way the movies like disguise their punches in this year. So that's my bronze. But I can't do the curveball now, so I'll try to save that to the end because I just realized it gives away two of mine.
Extra curvy ball.
It's an extra curveball.
All right.
All right, hit me with your bronze.
All right. My bronze winner. Every rainy day past 2009, you have the perfect movie to watch.
No.
Coraline.
Damn, that's I wasn't even on my list. I forgot all about it.
I wasn't going to put it on my list. I actually have another thing that I'm going to actually wedge into my real silver, but I love Coraline. I think that is one of the coolest. It's actually probably one of my favorite stop motion movies like ever of all time. And it's also got I think it's hands down like if it's we're in Southern California, so rain isn't the norm here, but I always feel like when it's raining there's like two movies that we'll put on that will make life fantastic. So it's either what was it? My Neighbor Totoro. We watched that one last time,
right?
And that was great. Like it was like so relaxing. We fell asleep. And then Coraline.
That's the one with the taxi in it, right?
Yeah, the cat taxi.
The cat taxi.
Right.
I remember this.
That kind of stuff. But Coraline, I think, is my favorite stop motion animation movie of all time. I over all the other Leica stuff. Like some people like. Was it Kubo and the Two Strings?
Sure.
Box Trolls is also really good.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't the biggest fan of Paranorman. Like I kind of want to give it a rewatch this October, but it wasn't my favorite. What you think it would be, given the
there's a lot of excitement for that one.
Given like the fact that there's like zombies and ghosts and stuff like that in there, but there's something about Coraline. Neil Gaiman, that's what it is.
Well, yeah, but it's interesting to me that you're identifying it as a rainy day movie and then pulled out one that I'd never tried in a rainy day. I would have never thought of it as a rainy day movie because there's something really great about finding movies for certain times. Yeah, right. It's such a good feeling when like we had even talked about this on a previous podcast episode where I had found this Scandinavian horror movie just called Saint, basically set near Christmas, and I always like to find one good horror movie at Christmas, and I couldn't do it that year. Every movie I watched that I hadn't seen before even if they came with great recommendations, weren't great, or I didn't enjoy them as much as I should, or whatever. So like literally December 24th, I'm wrapping, and then I caught this movie at the last minute. It like saved horror Christmas for me. So I just have such a good feel. So like finding movies for good occasions is great. So the fact that Coraline lines up like that,
it is.
I can't wait for it to rain
even
6 months from now in LA
during June.
Thanks for doing this to me.
No, like even like the sound. I actually ended up putting some of the soundtrack in the Hollow Weekly
the Spotify playlist.
Horror playlist. Yeah. That's now, it was already pretty long. I think it was like over a day long of like
that's amazing.
Horror music and scores. But we're
going for day 2.
Yeah, we're going for
starting on this episode.
We're going
for day 2.
Yeah,
day 2
you gotta start putting some real abstract shit in there to make day 2 happen. Otherwise,
True.
A lot of the horror movie scores out of context just don't really.
Hello, Philip Glass.
Yeah, Philip Glass needs. I need to get him a back brace for carrying
33-minute stretch of
carrying that list. No, but I think Coraline. There's something
what
like
makes it good for a rainy day.
There's a very tranquilic feel to the movie because it's they go into this house and it's a little girl exploring this house and it has the door that takes her to like the other mother, and it's just everything's just kind of flipped, but it's got like a really slow but steadily moving pace that just kind of feels like when you're listening to the rain. Like it just the way you listen, like if you it reminds me of like in Ohio, sitting on the front porch when it rains and you just kind of like sit there and like that same tranquility is like the pacing of this movie. It's really weird.
So it's actually a vibe for that.
Yeah, but then also for like the horror aspect of stuff, like there are actually like cool unsettling things in it, like the other mother, the other father.
Right.
I think Terry Hatcher does the voice of the mom, and she gets like pretty scary. And Keith David's the voice of a cat. So like I mean, what else do you want from me, man? Like
that's pretty tranquil.
That's all you really need. And they changed it. I never read the book, but in the movie there's another character that they added into it. But and it's also directed by Henry Selick. I think the guy who did Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, okay.
He actually directed Nightmare Before Christmas. There's always
right.
Tim
Burton,
every Halloween time. Tim Burton actually didn't direct it. Yeah, we know. Which is, what? Let me bring this up.
The reason nobody cares about that fact is when you follow it up with Harry Selick.
You're like, who's that? Now you can say he did Coraline, and here's the thing.
That's good.
I just went back home to Ohio. We got to premiere a movie that we made, which is a really fun thing we got to do. One guy walked out of the theater, said it was terrible. It was great.
Only one?
Only one.
That's a good sign.
Other people, we stuck around for the Q&A. But when I was home, we would put on like Freeform or AMC because they always have the movies going on. And they had Corpse Bride on. And I've never seen Corpse Bride. And that was the stop motion directed by Tim Burton. Awful. Like that is not good. Like it is genuinely not a good movie. Like it's fun to look at. Like I remember I went to when we first got our cats, we went to the vet in Los Feliz and they had it on the background. And I'm like, this is I'm putting it on the background and not paying attention to it.
See, you got purposes for these movies.
Yeah. So that movie, if you're not paying attention and you just want to look up and see, a cool character design, great. If you're trying to watch it, put on Coraline.
Coraline, not a stormy day, a nice rainy day, nice foggy-ish, mistish,
cool day,
perfect for that. Corpse Bride, dentist, got it.
Funeral,
got it. Well, that's appropriate. No, that's awesome. I love it. I want to come up with a more rainy day playlist and add some.
I think for me, Coraline would
because I have a feeling there's some other movies in 2009 that would go on this. I actually can think of two. I just don't want to bring it up yet. That would actually do really well with rainy days.
Yeah. So Coraline, you are the bronze winner. So whenever I see a little bit of sprinkling outside, I'm like, ooh, maybe we should throw that on.
Well, I'm shutting spring down. We're going foggy, sinister, silver. My silver award is to documentaries.
Don't pick the same documentary as me.
God damn it.
Do not pick the same documentary.
I have to.
Do we have the same silver?
We might, because I'm going to talk about the 3 best documentaries in this year. And one of them starts with the letter C, and one of them starts with the letter B, and one of them starts with the letter N.
Well, the B one is
the one you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll just kick that to you. That's fine. There is a movie that starts with...
We'll share the silver. So you get the other two out of the way, and then we'll share...
Is it a 3-word title?
Yep.
Fair enough. All right.
Definitely is.
All right, let me shift gears here because there are two other. That's okay. I'm equally passionate about all these. So I'm not going to talk much about this one. I'm just going to say that Cropsy came out in this year. Cropsy is a really interesting phenomenon as a documentary, right? Because it's weird. I never rewatched it. I always rewatch the things I really love. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I've never been pulled to rewatch this. So I don't know what that says about the movie. I enjoyed it when I watched it. I just haven't rewatched it, right? But the thing is that movie was like when you go out of your house and there's someone standing on the sidewalk across the street, and they're just standing wrong.
Yeah,
they just don't look right. They're not doing anything. There's nothing you can call them on, but they're just like the body language. There's something wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Cropsy felt like that. It just never fit. The cover art was terrible.
That was the one about the New Jersey or something like that,
right? The like urban. Right, and the thing is, it has that Candyman kind of feel because it's one of the few true stories that sort of became an urban legend that had enough cachet. It's almost like mini Slenderman. Like Slenderman for that area, right? But the thing is, there's something so haphazard about this movie. The way it was made, the way it's shot, the way it presents itself. It's just shabby, right? Yeah. And it's like that rust-colored. It's like what the New York looked like in the 70s during the crime wave. Yeah. That's everything about this movie looks like that.
It's fuzzy.
Right? It's fuzzy, right? Bad fuzzy, right? So it just is. I've
never rewatched it either. That's really interesting.
It's just standing there out of the corner of my eye across the street on the sidewalk, just standing there wrong.
It's one of those movies where like I thought it was just like okay, like I didn't think it was the best thing, but if I were 13 years old,
right,
and I was walking home on the bike trail or in the woods, just the name Cropsy would send a shiver up my spine.
Totally. The name is kind of great too.
So. It is a great name.
But the best documentary I can't talk about because it's you took it. But
no, we both
this
landed
is a joint presentation.
This is a joint presentation. Yeah.
But I just want to. I said I wasn't going to talk about Cropsy. I ended up talking about a lot. But the real other documentary that's just gold here. I gave it a silver. Is Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue.
I saw that on the list.
Such a great, just kind of comprehensive overview. And what really is cool about it to me is this is not like rah like American like whatever. It's just it was so cool that America had reached the point that it could get the kind of documentary that was an overview the way you can do for all the European and all the other like cultures. Like I grew up watching, you just randomly come across these great, weird things off BBC or whatever that were the history of horror. And then they'd start with, old British horror movies and radio dramas and then transition to European horror and Hammer castles and whatever, and then it would be like the history of American horror, and like the history of American horror was like Steven Spielberg was born or whatever, right? Because like Hitchcock was from Britain.
They glance over
it, right? And then we did all the Universal stuff, whatever, but no one wanted to talk about that like whatever. They just wanted to. I mean, there was all kind of its own thing.
Yeah, because when they had Hammer, they're like, well, yeah, we got this,
right? But it was all set in Europe, so ironically, our biggest successes just all still feel European, right? Yeah. So Nightmare, like. It was one of the first documentaries I remember watching and thinking, I mean, this is treating it like its own recipe. Like there is a recipe for what American horror is, and they're starting to like do the archaeology thing where they brush off the edges with their little fucking brush, right? And, like try to figure out the outlines.
Someone goes,
right?
Night of the Hunter. Right.
Exactly. Like what is American horror, and where do you put the pieces, together or whatever? So. I really appreciated it for that. It's really well presented. I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't know how it aged exactly, but I have great memories of it. And between that, Cropsy, and the one you're going to say,
well,
this is such a good year for documentaries. All right, silver awarded. So
now the joint silver award. This is rare.
This is very rare.
Except for
rare that we've also put it in the same spot. I could have let off with it.
I was toying with it. I almost right before I did the bronze, almost flipped Coraline to silver, but then I was like, it has to happen during a rainy day. Not a lot of rainy days, so it's clearly bronze. But okay, so silver is best worst movie.
Indeed.
What a good documentary that is!
God damn it.
Speaking of rewatching, I've seen this twice, and the first time I watched it, we didn't even get all the way through because something came up. But like, one of the things you like to talk about when like reviewing a movie is like the memorability test. Mm-hmm. And I remember where I watched it, where I sat. I remember my friend throwing in a California pizza kitchen in the oven.
Oh shit!
And I remember I even remember picking off the tomatoes, watching like my memory of that.
This is what I'm talking about. This is the sign of a great movie.
Yeah, that everything is so clear. And then I remember showing it to you. Like I was like we were trying to watch something and nothing we couldn't figure out something. And then I was like, well, let's just throw a Hail Mary here. And I talk about an enticing, like, sucks you in movie.
Unbelievable.
So,
I mean, and just so interesting.
For those who don't know, it's about Troll 2. The movie that has nothing to do with Troll 1. With a director who knows how American girls dance.
Right. You mean the Fellini of horror?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
That guy is an amazing character. And he's not even the most amazing character in it. And in any other documentary, he would be the central amazing character.
But you have the dentist.
He's not the dentist.
Yeah, you have the dentist who's now a main actor. You have these people who have like no experience.
And insane with power. Can we just say that dentist, I don't think he realized it was happening to him, but he went insane with power. He might as well have just been running around being like, it's alive! Like, he was the Dr. Frankenstein of sudden fame. He just all of a sudden wanted everything to do with everything that was this experience. And then he ran into a couple of bad experiences and he was like, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. Such an amazing turn of events.
No, and even the director who like kept telling everyone they don't know anything like about American culture, and they're like, dude, we're like in the heartland making this fucking movie. My favorite part of that movie though is and this movie is pretty widely available. Like I think we found it on like YouTube for like $1.99 or something like that. Like it is. I mean,
and it shows up on Prime and like
out of all the things this year, like if like for the listeners, if I was like there's one thing, like there's good movies. Like we even have the gold medal we got to talk about. Like
this isn't even the gold.
I would actually say watch this movie first because one, it'll tick off the horror stuff for you. You get to learn about a really shitty fun horror movie, but then you get to meet the world's most psycho director ever.
Yes.
My favorite part of that movie, and this isn't a spoiler because even if I tell you what's going to happen, you seeing this guy's facial
fact you're talking about spoilers about a documentary is just a sign of how fucking good this documentary
came out so many years ago.
When would you ever be talking about spoilers in a documentary?
Dude, the part when he goes to the screening to see Troll 2 and he thinks everyone's there because this is like his magnum opus. Like he thinks that he made like
he is so sure.
He thinks he outperformed Hitchcock, and then he realizes everyone's there to watch this movie because it sucks. The look on his face when he realizes that like nobody's here because they're moved to tears by Troll 2. They're here because this movie's fucking crazy.
Well, and there's a internet meme that I love actually of this little dog who's walking in the middle of the road, and there's just everyone on both sides of the road is just cheering.
Oh yeah.
Throwing confetti in the air and blowing horns, and this dog is just so pleased. And it's always some variation of when you think the parade's for you or whatever, right? Because he's just they're there to celebrate the feast of St. John or something, and this dog
this dog's like you shouldn't have.
Like you shouldn't have, right? So, but it reminds me of that. It reminds his reaction was, I mean, he thought he was that dog, and then he realized he's just a dog.
I don't even think he ever like came around to the idea that.
No, he still thinks we're all wrong. He thinks we're wrong right now. He's probably listening, and he thinks we're dead wrong.
He's gonna send us a box full of farts or something like that.
Yeah, I absolutely adore this movie. It's hard not even making it the gold. It's just this was a really good year for horror.
But also, they do such a great job at the production of it and the characters around it. And I think the movie's directed by, I believe, the kid in the movie. It was one of the actors.
Yes, totally.
Who went to
the
go
kid
do
from Troll 2, right?
Yeah. Yep. So you have someone who
was inside of it. Right?
Yeah. He normally you have like a fly on the wall kind of person who loves the movie, then they go and they make the documentary. But the fact that like the person who was there was like, I we need to revisit this,
right? And there are legitimate dramatic beats in this movie. I know that's not as mind blowing now because we are all used to documentaries doing the true crime, the Jenks serial thing.
Oh yeah.
But this isn't true crime. This is just an entertainment documentary. Like if you're watching Never Sleep Again, There's not supposed to be like edge of your seat dramatic turns, but they go on a voyage in this movie to go visit people who were actors in the movie. And it takes a really dark turn. Like I remember I got really uncomfortable thinking, what's happening? How is this movie making me uncomfortable? It's just like this feel good documentary of this success story of whatever. But there are moments where it goes places you don't expect.
But what's cool, my favorite thing, and then I'm done talking about Troll 2, which I never thought we'd say that, is at the end of the documentary when they asked the dentist, like, would you do it again? And he was like, oh, absolutely. Like, he would do it in a heartbeat. The fact that, like, you get to see behind the scenes of how shitty and crazy and wild this is, and, like, what a ride it is.
Right.
That all these years later, they're like, so would you? And he was like, oh, absolutely. Like,
that's such a good point, because that's, you ask yourself when you see people when you see politicians clearly lying, clearly humiliating themselves, like, in public, saying things that are just are false or blatantly false, and everyone knows they're false. The people standing behind them who work for them know they're false. You can see it on their faces.
They start looking down on the ground.
But they're still doing it. But they're doing it for this. That the whatever ride you go on, there are certain people who enjoy certain kind of rides, right? This dentist, the show business, like convention, getting recognized on the street, getting offers to do other roles. That ride was his magic ride. It's that one great roller coaster that's better than any other roller coaster at the park for you, right? And that you get that in other senses, but he really it explains why a lot of people do the crazy things you see them do. Is they're on that version of the ride for themselves, and nothing's gonna stop them.
No.
And even if it takes really bad turns and becomes not worth it at all, obviously they're still gonna do it again the first chance they get, right?
Yeah.
Which is.
So that's Troll. I mean, best worst movie. I can't recommend that movie. You know what?
You can recommend it higher. You could have given it a gold.
I could have given it a gold. I was gonna say, you know what? When you're done with Coraline, just slap that movie in. Preheat the oven to 450. Get a California pizza kitchen with tomatoes. Pluck all them bitches off.
I love that you remember the experience of it. Because that to me that's the real treasure. That's the sign that you've just experienced something great. All right, I'm choosing two people as my winner, but also the movie that they did, and as soon as I tell their names, it's going to be.
I have a feeling we might land.
We probably are on the same thing, but so this is going to be a really short game. Tell me what the movie is, right? So the Chicago Tribune at the time called this movie a gruesome paint-by-numbers mess, right? The LA Times said it's self-conscious splatter over a sorely lackluster scare flick. And and it also says it can't muster up even a modicum of suspense and has no zing. Who writes that your movie has no zing, right? And then the great Roger Ebert, 3 stars, said... being what it's about, it's probably better than it needed to be. What movie are we talking about?
Oh, it's got to be Drag Me to Hell.
Oh, it's not. But guess who
Jennifer's Body.
Yes.
Ooh.
Nailed it. Guess who got it right? Of all Chicago Tribune, Ebert, Washington Post, all these New York
Roger Ebert, though, gave it some credit. It's not bad. That wasn't a drag.
Right. New York Times.
3 out of 4. That's considering where that dude was.
Especially on horror.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Okay, but who? Okay,
who really got it right? The only entity that existed that could have possibly reviewed this movie the way it deserved.
Kenneth Turan.
MTV. MTV called it brilliant.
Man.
They must have gone on to great things because they were so successful.
Yeah, they're like, you know what? We stopped doing music by then, so we better start watching some horror movies. So
my gold medal, the winners of horror in 2009 were Karen Kusama and Megan Fox, because Jennifer's Body is... not only a masterpiece, but a prototypical example of, first of all, you might just not be right about movies at the time, right? We might have done an episode last week where we said something about a movie that we're not going to feel 10 years from now. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a way. I was toying with the idea of, not even reviewing movies by ratings or Rotten Tomato scores or whatever, but just by the range of possibilities that someday they'll become better than they are right now. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, what are the chances? Like, what are the odds? Like, if you were betting horses at a racetrack and you put 5 movies in front of you and the movies were Quiet Place 2, Don't Breathe 2, Annihilation, and you had to bet on one of these movies being considered great 10 years from now, where would you put your money? Like, what are the betting odds, right? I feel like betting on Annihilation in those examples was pretty obvious because I put bad examples, but we're, whatever. Like, maybe not. Maybe it's like a movie that gets dragged 10 years from now, or for, things that people find it. Who knows? That's part of the fun of it. But Jennifer's Body took everybody by surprise. It is unreal how in the current culture Megan Fox is right now.
Dude, it's crazy to say that. When I went back home, usually when I go to sleep, I'll put on something like Frasier or something like that. Like just, an old sitcom.
Tranquility.
Tranquility. And I went on my parents' Hulu, and they have the ones with commercials. So I was like, not doing that.
Right.
So then I was like, what should I put on? And then I just went on to Netflix, and I put on the first show, and it was New Girl. Apparently, there's a season of New Girl, or like a handful of episodes, maybe 6, 7, 8 episodes, where what's-her-face, Zooey Deschanel's not on it, replaced with Megan Fox.
Wow.
So it's weird that we're having this whole Megan Fox conversation.
Right, but she had deserved it the whole time, so good for her. But it's the relevance of where they are. But here's the thing. There are a lot of great revenge stories. We've been talking about some of them in 2009. I'm sad that I'm not even going to get to talk about The Loved Ones, because that is such a near masterpiece that it deserved, to be more mentioned here. But it's also a revenge story, right? The ultimate revenge story is this damn movie. Like, Karen Kusama, she had worked on Aeon Flux.
The series or the movie?
The movie,
okay. Right?
And she did Girl Fight, which was amazing. And then she got, this chance to do a movie, and she got Finchered, like Alien 3. It's but everything that you think of Alien 3, that's Aeon Flux, but for her, right?
Right.
And she came out of it exactly the way Fincher did. She came out of it and she goes, I am never going through this again. I'm not working on something I don't have complete control of. So she does Jennifer's Body, and that is a disaster at the time, right? But to go in and be like, you know what, you people, you have no idea, like, that you meddled with my Aeon Flux, you meddled with my movie, you messed it up. I know how to make a movie. And then you make Jennifer's Body. Now, usually in the revenge story, that's where you win. And then it's a fail. And then all the people are like, whatever. But it is now the most glorious win that all those people are just screwed. Right? Because there's no way to get in front of this movie anymore. This movie's ahead of you. No
you know what Jennifer's Body did? It did the District 9 thing. It's like, I'll be back in 10 years.
It really did. I mean, it's everywhere. They asked Megan Fox this one. It was as horror fans, regardless of how you felt about the movie at the time, if you had a feeling about it, and how you feel about it now, this is such a win for horror, right? This moment.
Yeah.
Because they went to Megan Fox, who did all kinds of things and has had this career, and she they asked her, what movie do people come up and ask you about most? And she looked at him the way Jamie Lee Curtis looked at the guy who told her that her horror villain wear a hockey mask. Like, she looked at him like, you're an idiot. And you think that the answer is going to be Transformers. And she just goes, Jennifer's Body. That's all anyone asks me about, and I love it. Right?
Oh, that's so good. I was like, I thought she was going to get mad or like talk about.
No, not mad at all. But it's just, it seems to her, it would be like asking Tilly, what horror movie fans ask her about. I mean, she in her mind, Jennifer's Body is the best thing she's done in horror, and maybe was done in horror at the time. She's really proud of it, right? Yeah. And the fans who know are the ones, they ask her all the time about it. And to have an actress who has done mainstream stuff too, be horror was the win. Horror is where she got the chance, right? Horror is the place where she got to do the thing she's really proud of, and that people like. That is such a good thing for the genre, first of all. Second of all, it's just a great, amazing movie. Remember, we were talking about how many surprises were being packed in these movies, right? This movie, the surprises, because the loser, here's my curveball, the loser of 2009 was marketing. Everything was so marketed so wrong. Splice was marketed wrong. The way they marketed Jennifer's Body as, if you're on a high school football team, you're going to love this movie. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the movie's killing people on high school football teams, right? So it's to me, a great revenge story. It's a great win for a genre. Most importantly, it's a great story and a great movie with really, really interesting performances. That's the thing. Like Amanda Seyfried, who also did incredible things in Twin Peaks: The Return, is underrated for how spooky she can actually be when she's trying to be. That last shot of her in the movie is whatever, and it's just glorious. And her eyes are kind of haunting. And the one of the things that I love about that movie is that it's, how the payoff of, matter of fact, I don't even have to go out of 2009 to do it. I'll just give you the example of Friday the 13th. They worked so hard and so stupidly to make us hate a certain character in that movie. He was the guy who owned the house with the perfect hair. I forget his name. It's like Chip.
His Hollywood hair.
Yeah, whatever. The guy who gets impaled on the truck at the end. Spoiler, who cares? Because he's the complete douchebag. But the thing is that it's the idea here is you have this character that they just know they're going to kill and they want it to pay off for you. And as a horror audience, we resist because we don't want to be so obviously manipulated. By the third, they gave me 8 character traits for me to hate. By like trait number 4, I was like,
we get it.
My God, yeah, I hate him. When he dies, you want the whole audience to stand up and cheer. But we were all like mad because you oversold it, right? This movie, the payoff is the death of the band. And the death of the band happens in the credits at the end, right? And it's actually gory, so they don't pull. It's good. It's well done, even in a horror sense. Like if you're a horror fan, all you care about is gore, you still got stuff to work with here. But the fact that they made the revenge people an afterthought, because that's where they deserve to be, right? Those characters didn't deserve tons of build up and tons of whatever and whatever. The movie treated those characters the way they should be treated, right? They were actually a setup for her greatness, and then they just get discarded as an afterthought. Oh yeah, we had to kill you guys too at the end. And the fact that it did it that way treated them the way they should be treated, and then the movie got so maltreated is so ironic that it's a great ultimate revenge. Great win for the genre. Great win for them. Gold medal.
That's a great gold medal. I like that.
But I feel a gold medal from you coming for the movie you thought that I was talking about.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that because the movie is the representation of the idea.
Oh, okay.
We're going
Let's
there.
do this.
We're going that route.
Let's do this.
And I almost did something similar a few episodes back, but I don't remember what it was. But there was some tomfoolery going on with my gold medal. So my gold medal goes to the final nail in the coffin that all horror should be rated R.
Oh, hit me! I love this argument.
So obviously the first one that comes to mind, PG-13 horror, 2009, gonna go Drag Me to Hell.
Right?
Drag Me to Hell, and I think if anyone was to drive that nail into the coffin, it should come from someone who I think is one of the best horror maestros of our generation, our lifetime.
Yes.
Sam Raimi.
Absolutely.
If it came from anyone else, maybe you can make the argument. But the fact that you had Sam Raimi being like, hey, here's and I don't know if he meant for it to be PG-13. The fact of the matter is it is PG-13.
It is what it is.
It's an argument that we've seen come up. We've probably talked about it on multiple episodes, but
and we have to talk about it on the page all the time because it's an argument that gets brought up, or other people get hazed on our page,
and
because they're enjoying a PG-13 horror movie, which I just don't have time for.
And what's fun, the reason I wanted to use Drag Me to Hell as the nail is a lot of times people will bring up something like Poltergeist or something like that, and then the retort for that is, well, they didn't have the MPAA system. PG-13 rated R wasn't a thing. They try to skew that into their thing.
Or the other retort is, it would have been even better. Yeah, it's great, but if we made it R, it would have been even cooler.
And the fact that we've been doing horror podcasts and watching horror movies our whole life, and as we were doing this episode, I was thinking to myself, how often do I look at a rating for a movie?
Right.
I never look at a rating for a movie.
That's interesting, because a lot of horror fans would do, I suspect.
But who gives a shit? It's the most arbitrary thing, because the MPAA is ran by a bunch of fucking moms and dads who don't want you to see a titty. That's that's what they don't care about. Like I remember watching the behind the scenes of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and they were talking about the different types of blood that get you dinged by the MPAA, and
Right.
if you have a gooey, stretchy type of blood,
Right.
that gets you dinged too. So who gives a flying?
I'm with you.
Who cares what these people say?
Right.
These people are inherently not going to like the types of movies we are going out to see.
True. I'm with you there.
It doesn't matter.
No.
What matters to horror fans should be at the fundamental level, and even for movie fans in general, should just be: is the story good?
Right.
Is the story good?
Right.
Is if it's not, then the movie's gonna suck.
But see, so this is why I think about this like ingredients, right? It's like cilantro,
Yeah.
right? If I watch a bunch of movies and I don't enjoy any of them, and they're horror movies, and they're just not giving me what I wanted to get from a horror movie when I watched it, right? And then I look back at the recipe and I'm like, all right, who directed it? I'm like, oh, there's all from the 90s, or all, it's all black and white, or like whatever. And then one of the recipes is, oh, they're all PG-13. I didn't watch a single R movie. Well, then I might just start to suspect the cilantro. But if you eat these meals of these movies and you look back and there's, oh, I did enjoy that one, or that one is good. If you didn't look at it, you just went in and didn't prejudge it, you truly watched it and judged it on its own merits, then you didn't like it. Well, then maybe you just don't like cilantro.
It reminds me of
right?
It reminds me of the thing they did with sommeliers and with wine.
They took the blind taste
Yeah,
test?
they did the blind taste test to all these people who thought
I
they
almost
knew.
said that instead.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. They thought they knew everything about wine, and they would be like, "Oh, this is clearly the expensive wine, and it was the cheap wine, and this is the cheap wine, and it's the expensive wine." Like they got all of it completely wrong.
Well, and it's also just tossing aside all of the foundation stones of horror, because your Cabinet Dr. Caligari is not R, right? Like
Frankenstein
Bride of
is
Frankenstein's not R, right? These
No.
movies aren't R. And Night of the Hunter is not R. But if you have an imagination, it's NC-7 fucking teen.
Right.
If you just have an imagination,
Well-
right? It's PG. But if you have an imagination, it's X. So just work with the movie. If it's great, collaborate with it while you're watching it. Don't just sit there and
And there's no way you can look me in the eyes and say, because here's the thing: whenever things are rated R, it's usually nudity, gore, or language. Like that's usually what it is.
Sure.
And to me, those aren't the things that make the movies great.
Right.
Like it's just not. It's just not. Like so. Here's some other
not
movies.
having those things when you felt like the story needed those things might be a sign of it not being great. But that's all things you'd have to know
Yeah.
watching it, which you probably aren't going to know.
Well, but then there's classic examples of stuff like Black Cat. Like they don't show you what's going on in the room. You hear what's going on in the room. You see the blood come out through the door. Like that that is inherently more scary than seeing someone get mauled
Totally.
to death. At least for me. I'm sure there's some people who would argue, but those aren't the people I'm trying to speak to right now. But here's some other movies that are PG-13 that shocked me. Like as we're recording this episode, I thought for sure they were rated R. So the first one is Insidious.
Oh, good one.
Insidious is PG-13, my dude.
Yeah,
like
that makes sense thinking back on the experience of it. But wow,
The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which recently came up in conversation because Scott Derrickson.
which is I mean, that's if you don't think that's a movie that is at least terrifying for some, then I don't know what to do with you.
Yeah, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was PG-13, but that makes sense. But that was also like there was people in the theater.
Enjoyable.
Yeah, The Ring. Okay, Drag Me to Hell.
The Ring scared a generation of people.
Following The Ring is the American remake of The Grudge, which I was in middle school when that movie came out, and that movie terrified absolutely. Everyone was making that noise. Like that was absolutely frightening.
Yeah.
A Quiet Place was PG-13.
That makes sense.
The Quiet Place dictated how people moved in a movie theater. The Quiet Place made people tiptoe because they didn't want to make any noise.
Yep. But imagine, Nick, let me kind of argument this. Imagine Quiet Place was R. I mean, how amazing would that have been? You would have walked out and your ears would have fallen off.
It just would have been more blood. And I don't care about the blood. You know,
that's why how stupid this argument is. Because that's not what the movie was going for. The movie was going for what it was going for, like the dynamics between the family, the nice sweeping shots of the fields with all the lights and whatever. It didn't need those things.
Oh, here's some more. these. Oh yeah, no one's ever liked these movies. Tremors, Monster Squad, Killer Clowns from Outer Space is PG-13, which is crazy. So I mean, the list goes on and on. Like
Right.
there's just so many.
And I
of
mean,
them.
obviously there's space for R and worse, like whatever horror. I mean,
It's not that we
Right.
don't like R. That's not the
of
thing.
course, that's why I'm saying what
Yeah.
I'm saying
Oh,
is
sorry, go
because
ahead.
it's so easy to misunderstand. Like whatever, it's not that. It's just it doesn't need to be great.
Yeah.
It just needs to be what it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
If the person making it is whatever, like if Alfred Hitchcock was resurrected right now, right, I suspect he might just go make really bad R movies. Like, he might have been one of those people who needed censorship.
Yeah.
Ironically, like whatever, right? But how would you know until you did it what is the thing that suits you? I mean, Orson Welles, made some great movies, but I mean, in terms of success with Hollywood, whatever, he made one.
Yeah.
Right. If you're as talented Orson Welles and you could pull off one of those, and you did like 30, that means that even the people themselves don't know whether they need to be PG or R or NC-17 or what they need to be until they start doing it. And who the hell are we to tell them? We can tell them after with our response and how we feel about it and what tickets we bought and like whatever. But how do you tell them in advance or while you're just going to the theater to sit down? Like, nope, I'm out. I don't care what you say, Scott Derrickson. I know that you're an R guy.
Yeah, it's
Right?
it's just such a weird arbitrary thing, and I always thought the argument whenever it pops up in the group is just kind of like a silly one because like I just mentioned Coraline,
Right,
like,
right,
definitely not rated R, but it's a great movie, and I guess my whole plea and my whole idea for this is if you are one of those people who truly believe in that, just give it like one more shot. Like that's all I ask
I agree.
for. Is just give it one. And and if after you watch like one or two PG-13 horror movies and you still think it needs to be R, if you gave it a shot,
I don't think that's the way to do it. I think they should give it one more shot, but I think the shot they could give it, or at least the thing that I did, I remember vastly enjoying. I remember not getting like 50s sci-fi. For some reason that just never connected with me. So like I love classic horror. I love black and white horror and all that stuff. Cat People 42.
the Atomic Age didn't
My
do it for
favorite
you.
horror movie, but for some reason that whole This Island Earth era, the what's the one with Klaatu, the most famous one, the Day of the Earth Stood Still, right? So for some reason those always made me really sleepy.
Yeah.
When I tried to watch them or think about them or whatever, right? But I read in a book somewhere, someone had written something about these movies, and he said, when you watch a movie, imagine watching it as the people who are seeing it. Imagine the mindset they were in, right? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never tried to watch a movie as not myself before.
Hard to do, I
right?
can imagine.
Right? Like almost as an actor, but flipped. Instead of the
Yeah.
actors being on the screen, you're acting like a person who is hiding under their desks and doing atomic bomb drills and, thinks the Soviets are hiding behind every bush and whatever, right? So, and I sat there and I remember my experience of the movie changed. It got more magical, right? The darks got darker. The grays got like shinier. You could tell that it was just a really vivid thing that was really scary to them. All that gray stuff that made me feel sleepy or whatever was like featureless things they couldn't figure out. They were desperately trying to get clues from the things they saw, and everything was just gray.
Right.
They couldn't figure out what was what, and it was too slippery to grab hold of. It's like the Free Solo guy trying to climb a refrigerator wall, right? So then I was like, oh, this is great. Like I can see it. It's a more enjoyable. So just sit down with a PG-13 movie and just put yourself in the mindset of someone who's seeing it when they're 12, or put yourself in the mindset of someone who's seeing it at the time that it came out, or someone who, right? Like, don't just sit there, right? Like active viewing is better than
Active viewing.
passive viewing.
Yeah, no, I like that. Active viewing.
Active viewing is what we stand for.
Yeah, and actively subscribing to the podcast.
Good segue.
There we go. That's our one ask today
There
is
we go.
subscribe to the podcast.
Yeah, just subscribe wherever you subscribe to what you get, what you listen to. We would really appreciate the subscribe button. It's not only to me, it's one of the things the few things that when you get really excited about when you see change.
Yes,
right?
and if you're on Spotify, there's a bell you can hit that lets you know. I didn't know this.
Oh, I didn't know anything
there's
about Spotify.
so on Spotify there's a bell that you can hit, and the notification looks pretty cool. So I was like,
you like the aesthetics of it.
I like the aesthetics of it.
That's amazing.
It's pretty cool. You know? but subscribe to the show if you're listening to this and you really dug it.
And thanks for listening. We appreciate it. And give us suggestions. We did finally get a couple. We got messages.
You convinced someone so our show automatically uploads on YouTube.
Oh, that's right.
And
the YouTube.
Yeah, someone was talking
about they were reading a book that I had talked about.
And convinced them to watch Midnight Mass.
Which is, I mean,
that's freaking cool.
That's great because it's really well done.
I'm still thinking about that show too.
Yeah, me too. It's weird, right? Like it's fine. It's good. To me, it was cool to see when not just the changes, but the fact that people sent us suggestions of what year to do next.
Yeah.
Right. 2009 was one of the ones I looked up because we got a message from the group saying, "Hey, 2009 has a lot of great horror in it," which is accurate, completely true. Right. Not that it's perfect and not to whatever, but again, it's startling looking across it. I didn't expect it was like I found 3 or 4 of every kind of genre you would want.
Yeah.
All like at least ably represented.
We had 3 documentaries in this year.
Right, and then we upcoming on a future one of these, I'm sure we're going to be doing 1995. We can't avoid it forever.
Yeah, it's one of those years.
It's one of those years, but it's going to be a radically different episode than the one you just listened to if you came this far, because there's just nothing to choose from there. Like, my number 2 winner is going to be Vampires in Brooklyn.
Our optimism will be exhausted for the year 1995.
So come along for the ride just for that, because eventually we're going to run out of good years, and then it's going to be very frustrating. So
I know.
You can laugh at us then.
We are teasing maybe doing the newest VHS is getting crazy good reviews.
Oh yeah, definitely. We got to check that out.
The anthology.
I don't know how I missed that. That's crazy.
I think it just came out. Because they did. I think they showed it at like Beyond.
Yeah, but
Fest.
I didn't even. I sort of vaguely knew that it was emerging, but I had it on a different clock. It was on the film festival clock where you actually.
And you
see
never
it
know
like
when. Yeah, when it's on film
7
festival.
months later or something.
Yeah,
right?
you never know
and then all of a sudden it was out and everyone was talking about it.
Companies buy it and they hold on to it for a year, and then crazy things happen. But apparently it's out. So all right, well, let us know what we should do next. We're on Facebook. We get all the messages in the world. So let us know what you think.
Hit us there at Hello Weekly, and we will
talk to you next time. Stay scary. Watch a bunch of horror movies, and if it's raining, you know what film to put on. Talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.